All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
What is up, everyone? Welcome into a return of the Hoosier Huddle. Took, I think, like a 7-8 week hiatus. Because in case some of y'all don't know, I work full-time for the military, and unfortunately that means I have to get up at a ridiculous time in the early morning. So these Thursday night games, especially being on the East Coast time, is brutal for me. So we are back. I got my partner here with me. I got Joe joining me for his first episode of Hoosier Huddle. Joe, how's it going, man?
It's going fantastic, Tony. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I can't wait to talk some football with you and just follow your lead, sir.
All righty. So we got to talk about last night's game, the Patriots versus the Falcons. The Patriots shut out the Falcons, and that's the first time the Falcons have been shut out at home since 1988, which is crazy to think. Well, I'll be honest with you. As somebody that's not a Patriots fan, I'm not a Falcons fan either. I think you guys in that Super Bowl broke Atlanta because Atlanta has not been the same since that Super Bowl. And you think about it, the last two games, Atlanta has scored a grand total of 3 points versus, I think it's 72 points or 62? No.
Yeah.
43 and 25. They've been blown out 68 points to 3. So
that's not good, Tony.
Right. So give me your take. What did you expect the Patriots to be able to put this up, or did you expect the Falcons just kind of be in this downward spiral?
Kind of yes to both. I'm wearing my Patriots pullover, by the way, so I was perfectly ready for this topic. Yeah, you're absolutely right about the Falcons. I mean, Arthur Blank dancing really ended up being just the greatest self-own of all time. Dancing up when they went up 28-3 on the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Last night's game specifically, I expected the Patriots to be pretty vanilla on offense and defense. You're playing a game 4 days later. They're coming up to a really tough stretch of games with their schedule, the Bills twice, Indianapolis, Tennessee, things of that sort. So they do have a tough schedule coming up. So this game, I didn't expect anything fancy. I didn't see anything fancy. I didn't expect Atlanta to be that bad. Defensively, they actually looked pretty good. Grady Jarrett did what he did in the Super Bowl a few years ago, which was create some pressure on the Patriots. People forget he was probably their best defensive player in that Super Bowl, and he continued it last night. The biggest problem was Matt Ryan looked like an old quarterback. When there was talk about quarterbacks playing, they're going to play into their 40s now because of Tom Brady. Matt Ryan's 36. A lot of guys have been out. A lot of all-time greats by the time they were 36 were retired. Yep. So we have to keep that in mind. I mean, you can get Kyle Pitts. We know about Ridley being gone with his mental health, which is more than admirable. He needs to take care of himself. But Atlanta is in a really rough situation. They want to run an Arthur Smith offense without Arthur Smith players. Yep. And last night that showed on short rest against a good team.
I'd agree. And I'll be honest with you, this Falcons team has been so interesting ever since that Super Bowl, because you look at that Super Bowl and even after that, when we look at all the games that Atlanta has played and they just completely just break down, this is a team that has shown when they had Julio, when they had Calvin Ridley, they didn't have Pitts yet, but they had these guys that would be able to make plays, and they offensively would hang with the absolute best of them. But it's just you've kind of noticed this defensive decline ever since that Super Bowl. And to be honest with you, they have completely lost their run game. Their run game is absolutely non-existent. They went from having two of the best running backs to me, probably having one of the best two-headed power back running combo in Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman, to they have Mike Davis and Cordell Patterson. Like that's all they've got. And
Patterson didn't play in the game last night, so a lot of that went on Davis. Sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off there. The biggest problem is we saw it in the short yardage situation. They're calling plays like Derrick Henry is back there.
Yeah.
The problem was, and somebody pointed out online, I think it was maybe Warren Sharp, on 4th and 1, you have the running back lined up 9 yards off the line of scrimmage. You have the quarterback drop back 5 yards to hand the ball off, and you don't get the 1 yard. It's like, well, duh. Like, again, they're just I don't know if they were expecting Julio when they drafted Pitts. I don't know if they were. I mean, you can't whiff on draft picks like they have. They've whiffed on offensive linemen. They've whiffed on some defensive linemen. Again, Grady Jarrett aside, there's been some misses. And this team is just – you're right. I mean, the word that I would use to describe the Falcons right now is broken. They're just a broken franchise. And every time they get a good player, I mean, Matt Ryan might be the most forgettable MVP in the NFL in the last 20 years.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, and shout out to Freddie for watching. I know Freddie always likes to be on these types of shows, but Freddie's working right now trying to make that bread. So Freddie, still appreciate you being a watch as far as your break goes. But no, I would agree, because I mean, defensively, Grady Jarrett is really the only playmaker they have on the defensive side of the ball. If you look,
AJ Terrell's had a good year this year, but it's still young.
I mean, you look at, and it's funny, when Dan Quinn left Atlanta and came to Dallas, he brought some of Atlanta's playmakers that they did have. Now they're not the guys that they were, 4 or 5 years ago in, Keanu Neal and DeMonte Casey, anything like that. But for Dallas, they've been a significant upgrade, and honestly have been one of the key things as far as Dallas being able to succeed and that Dan Quinn defensive scheme. But you're right. If you look at Mike Davis, Mike Davis was able to succeed with Carolina because Carolina would run that type of style that would fit with him. He is a big back, but again, like you said, he's not a Derrick Henry type back. If you put him, 9 yards back, and the Patriots, it's not like they have a terrible pass rush. They have Matt Judon, they have Kyle Van Noy, they have these guys that will get in there and stuff you at the line of scrimmage, and that's not the game you want to play with them. You would have to play short downs with a running back that can just go right up the middle, or all honesty, do a quarterback sneak. And like you said with Matt Ryan, I think it's sad for Matt Ryan, because he really is. He's one of the most forgettable league MVPs, and I think it's because that is the closest he has ever been to a Super Bowl, actually having been in it. They had total control over about 75% of that game. Yeah. And for whatever reason, when Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator, he said, you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to run the ball anymore. We're just going to throw it. And
it's nice to know they've kept that same philosophy since he's gone. I mean, I think the reason is because what's Matt Ryan's second best season? Nobody knows. Yeah. Like, he had this all-time, great, incredible season. And then the rest of the seasons were just like, oh, yeah, he's a good quarterback, which makes him even more forgettable. And then, like you said, the Super Bowl loss is just a stain that's never going to go away.
Yeah. And like you said, and it's one of those, it's not like Matt Ryan has ever really had a bad season. Most Matt Ryan bad seasons are actually pretty good statistical seasons for other quarterbacks. Yeah. It's just I don't know why as a team they're not able to collectively put it together. I'm gonna ask you this because I kind of have my own thoughts on it. Do you think that this more than likely is Matt Ryan's last year in Atlanta?
I think it should be. I'm not sure that it will be. I could see them going after a young quarterback next year in the draft, depending on where they fall. I don't know if it's going to be that high. I'm not a big college scout guy. I don't know the players coming out, but I do know that this is a weak class, especially for quarterbacks. So if they get like the 5th pick, I'm not sure they should take one there. But I can see Ryan sticking around for one more season as just kind of a bridge. But as a full-time guaranteed starter leader of the team, yeah, I think this is his last year.
So, because this is kind of where I get, I don't know. It's one of those, I agree with you. I agree that I think he should leave. But my problem is I don't really see a scenario in a place where Matt Ryan could go where he could potentially be the starting caliber quarterback he would be again. I guess 2 teams kind of do pop to mind. One of them is a little bit more realistic than the other. But even then, so my first team more than likely would probably be Miami. And I say that because it's very obvious that Miami wants to move away from Tua, no matter how much Brian Flores is kind of, putting that out there that that's not the narrative. They drafted him early, but they haven't really also said that, Tua is our guy and we're sticking with Tua moving
They
forward.
were trying to trade for Deshaun Watson and everybody knew it. Yeah,
exactly. And I think with the fact that Deshaun is in such a kind of unique situation right now, and we're still waiting to figure out whether or not he is going to be able to play, what happens with all the accusations, if the accusations stand, if they don't stand. So for Miami, they're really kind of stuck in this crossroads. If I'm Miami, I don't know if I wouldn't at least try Matt Ryan out for a year, to at least have him, and until you can kind of get an idea of what's going to happen with the Deshaun Watson thing. Because the Deshaun Watson thing is only going to happen, I would say, for at least one more year as far as figuring out what's going to happen. I don't see that sticking too much longer, and then they can kind of have an idea. I also say a 1 year with Matt Ryan, because then, okay, if Matt Ryan doesn't really work out, which he more than likely won't, we can move off of him. We're not into him for a ton of money, and we can still go get Deshaun if that's, absolutely what we want to do. There's another team that kind of popped up that Ryan could potentially go to. The one that I'd say was second most likely might be Denver. Although with Denver, it would be interesting on whether or not Vic Fangio is going to be there, and if he would have a good offensive coordinator that would pair well with him. Because really, Denver has everything that you need. They have good weapons. They have a good tight end. They have a decent offensive line. Surprisingly enough, Melvin Gordon is not having a terrible season, which I kind of thought he was, especially after he kind of fizzled out with the Chargers there. And even last year, he didn't have a great season with the Broncos. So, I mean, you have all of the potential pieces there. Denver just needs a quarterback. The third team, I think, actually would probably be one of the best places to have his career kind of revived, but they kind of already got their quarterback, hopefully, for the future, and that's the Colts with Carson Wentz. I think Matt Ryan with a Frank Reich offense would actually work extremely well for him. But to me, those are really the only three teams that, for Matt Ryan's sake, would be a beneficial upgrade to what he's got now. Are there any other teams in your mind, or do you disagree with any of those that you think, I don't think so?
Well, I will disagree with one, and I think the reason is because even though Matt Ryan played college ball at Boston College, it's been many a summer since Matt Ryan has played full-time outdoors in the cold. So I'm not sure going to a team like Denver, where I think you're absolutely right. On offense, they have all the weapons you could ask for, and on defense, they're really building something too. This is a team that is, when you look at their roster, they really are a quarterback away, as much as I like Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not sure that Matt Ryan can sustain through that cold. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that makes a lot of sense. I like Fangio. I don't think he's going to be the head coach next year unless they do something great, get into the playoffs, make a big difference the second half of the season here. The Colts one I understand, but I think that they are all in on Wentz right now, giving up the picks that they did, the contract, things of that sort. So, well, I understand now if Wentz gets hurt, serious injury, which we've seen, then maybe that's something that makes sense. Your other one was
Miami, Denver, and Indy.
Again, I said last year on the pod I'm on, I said I think that Tua might be a bust, coming out of the season. I said I think that was a little unfair with the injury and stuff, but maybe his size is just what limits him. A team that you need to keep an eye on, which is a team that you brought up, is actually Houston. Because I'm not sure that Houston is going to get a quarterback back in a trade that's going to be equal or lesser than Deshaun Watson. Just play style. I'm not talking about the off the field stuff. That's a whole other issue. I don't want to get into that because we don't know. But if you trade for even if you trade for a young quarterback like a Tua, like somebody like that, wouldn't you want a Matt Ryan as a veteran? Like, all of a sudden you're going to be presumably flush with draft picks, so you're going to be able to build a team around them. So if you look at yourself and say, okay, let's say we're going to get Matt Ryan on average his third, fourth, and fifth best seasons. We're not going to get his MVP season. We're not going to get his worst season, but right that meaty part of the curve. Okay. If we're going to get that Matt Ryan for the next 2 years, what do we give up for him, and what kind of team do we need to build that not only will help him, but will help the next quarterback? So a team like Houston, if they trade Deshaun Watson and they don't bring in a quarterback and they don't draft a high quarterback, that's a team I think that could make sense. You stay in the South, you stay in a dome, it's nice weather. Again, it's not perfect, but right now I'm not sure that there's a 1-to-1 fit. I think it's more of a triangular fit. Like, if this happens, then Matt Ryan goes there, and that makes a little bit of sense.
I mean, I can see it, but I I could see more of Matt Ryan being released by the Falcons and kind of choosing where he goes.
That too, yeah.
I don't think Houston would be it, because really he would kind of be in a similar situation. I mean, the offensive line for Houston has been a mess for years. That's part of why Deshaun doesn't want to be in Houston anymore. You lost, once again, another great generational talent in DeAndre Hopkins. You traded him basically for like two pennies and like a bag of Lay's potato chips, like unsalted even. Like, you got nothing positive out of this trade with David Johnson. They acquired just a ridiculous amount of running backs in Philip Lindsay and Mark Ingram. It's just like, okay, we don't have Deshaun, we don't have DeAndre, so we have David Johnson, Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay. You would think with all of those running backs that at one point have all been starters on multiple different teams, that Houston would be able to run the ball like nobody's business. And we've really seen it.
Yeah, they drafted huge draft capital, or traded huge draft capital for Laramie Tunsil. Gave Laramie Tunsil a ton of money. Then it was like, you know what? We don't have an elite left tackle.
Yep. And to be honest with you too, it's one of those, when I look at Houston with that, they completely dropped the ball on the offensive line. And sorry, I am having a total brain fart right now. I had a really good idea, and then it just completely went away.
It's the way of the world, man. It's the way of the world.
It really is. It really is. But Houston, it just you have Brandon Cooks, which Brandon Cooks is in and out. He's semi-healthy. He's not. And that's really the only playmaker you got. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Lovie Smith being there, because I've noticed that their defense has been more competitive with Lovie Smith being the shot caller on that. And actually, now I remember what I was going to talk about. I really don't think they lost out as far as getting Tyrod Taylor as a veteran quarterback, because, I mean, we've seen Tyrod be able to carry the Bills decently well until he got hurt. We've seen him be able to do it with the Browns until he got hurt. Really, it seems like every time Tyrod gets hurt, it leads to this franchise finding that its new quarterback. You look at Buffalo. Did Josh Allen end up filling in for him, if I remember right?
Yeah.
I mean, he led to Baker getting his starting job last year. Justin Herbert got the starting job because Tyrod got hurt.
He's an unhealthy McCown.
Yeah, very much so. He can be very dangerous. He can, at least keep you competitive. You're not probably going to win a ton of games with him, but you can be competitive with him for sure. But yeah, I don't know if I would really, if I'm Matt, like I do agree with what you say. If he goes somewhere, I think he'd want to go somewhere warm. I don't think he wants to have to play anybody in the cold. That's kind of the advantage of the NFC South, is your northernmost team that you face is Carolina. And even in the wintertime, Carolina's not completely terrible.
And it's one game a year.
Yeah. And it's at least one game a year in Carolina. But yeah, I kind of do see the Denver thing as far as being cold. But yeah. And then Anthony asked, was there a rumor Lane Kiffin might take the head coach of the Miami Dolphins if it's open? Do you see that happening? I'll be honest, no. Because, I mean, most of the time, if you look at a lot of historically, a lot of organizations, if you have a defensive-minded coach at the current time, you move to an offensive style coach. It's very rare you kind of stick with what you already have. Brian Flores is a defensive minded guy. Lane Kiffin's more of a defensive minded guy. So I don't really.
Lane was the offensive coordinator at Alabama. I thought Lane was more of an offensive guy, because
maybe he is. You're right.
When Al Davis hired him for the Raiders, he was supposed to be the next John Gruden, the offensive guru and things of that sort. So yeah, I personally don't see Lane Kiffin going there, because the question I would ask, and I think this is something that talks to both the college and pro games. What does your head coach, what does the leader of your franchise do best? Here's my question, Tony. What does Lane Kiffin do best?
I don't know, to be honest with you, because
I'm not sure I want that in charge of $1 billion franchise.
Right. And to be honest with you too, it's because is he at FAU, or is he? Yeah, he's at FAU now, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Florida Atlantic.
No. He went to. Wait a minute. Where's he at? That's bugging me. Isn't he Mississippi or something? Is he one of the Mississippi schools?
Oh, Ole Miss. Okay, I thought he was. Oh, he
okay.
was. Okay, he was at FAU, and then he went to Ole Miss. Okay, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he hasn't really done anything with. I mean, yes, Ole Miss is ranked, but I mean, if you look at kind of the college playoff, the college football field really as a whole, there's no teams that really stand out. I mean, I've even had debates on other shows with people. You know, there's no other teams outside of the top two in Georgia and Bama that I really trust as far as going anywhere inside the playoffs. And Ole Miss is another one of those. It's like, yeah, they are competitive. They've had some good wins, but they also have a lot of losses under their belt. So I mean, I don't. And we've kind of seen it too with Urban Meyer. There's some guys that even if they come back into the NFL, it doesn't always work. And I don't think Lane would be one of those guys with Miami where I think it would work. I think, all honesty, and it's going to sound crazy because the dude has done a terrible job at Texas. I think if there was ever a head coach that Miami would need to recruit just for the offensive coordinator style, it's Steve Sarkisian, so he can revive Tua's career. And I only say that because Steve has been in the Bama system. He knows Tua would be used to the Bama system, and I think he'd be more willing to kind of cater to Tua's strengths of what he was able to do in Bama.
Well, if you're going to give a former Alabama offensive coordinator position there, I would like to nominate Brian Dable from the Buffalo Bills. Also worked in the Bama system, also worked in the New England system, and I think could do wonders for Miami, whether it was with Tua or another quarterback.
Yeah, and well, I'll be honest with you. And our guy on the network, Mike, brought up a good point. I can honestly see him going to the Bears because I mean the Bears have already said they're getting rid of Matt Nagy. Well, they haven't said they're getting rid of Matt Nagy, but they've already said they're looking at other coaching options when the end of this year comes because Nagy is done. He did great with Trubisky. He did great kind of helping build a very good defense. But outside of that, if the play calling is stale, they're not really doing that great. Justin is having to, improvise a lot of stuff, kind of like he did at Ohio State, but he's doing a phenomenal job at it. I mean, I don't know if you watched that Pittsburgh Steelers game with the Bears and them, but he actually did fantastic as far as putting them in the best position to win. It's just defensively and penalty-wise, the Bears were just making mistakes.
No, he was incredible. Like you said, I mean, the sad part is Nagy has a winning record. He had a winning record with Trubisky. It was just the losses were so bad, and it never seemed like they could sustain anything. It was, a trick play here. It was something along those lines where they could barely get by. I mean, I think he made the playoffs, twice with Trubisky? But it just never felt that way. Ask any Bears fan, did you feel good having Matt Nagy as your coach? The answer is unequivocally, no, not really.
And Anthony asks, what about the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs? Is he good, or does Patrick make him look good? I'll be honest with you.
If you want to answer that one, go ahead.
I'll be honest with you. You can kind of make that argument for a lot of coaches. Like you can kind of make the argument, is Matt LaFleur up in Green Bay? Is he really a good head coach, or is he a good head coach because he's coaching Aaron Rodgers? Kind of the same with, was Mike McCarthy a good coach, or is he only a good coach because he has Aaron Rodgers? Now he has Dak Prescott. I mean, Dak Prescott made Jason the Clap Garrett, look like a coach of the flipping year. So, I mean, there's times I think that it's more of players kind of help, and kind of the same for Patrick Bieniemy. I'm going to sound crazy for this, and I've had a couple people comment about it as far as when I said it for Robert Saleh. I don't like Robert Saleh going to the Jets. I don't like good coordinators going to just completely bad scenarios. Like when we were looking at all the head coaching jobs that were available last year, you looked at the Lions, you looked at the Jets, you looked at the Jags. I mean, none of those teams, if I'm a coordinator on offense or defense, am I like, this is my job to go be a head coach, let me go do it? No. Because a couple years ago, now when Dallas hired like Mike McCarthy, when Washington hired Ron Rivera, those were good potential spots to be in because you had a lot to work with. Washington has, at least on paper, not this year, but on paper and last
Yeah.
year, they had phenomenally solid players that you could build around as far as the defense. They have a great wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. It's just and a decent offensive line, but you do need a quarterback. You got a running back, surprisingly, so you think, and you need a little bit of help in the secondary. That's about it. For Dallas, you've still got a fairly decent O-line. You've got weapons galore. It's just the defense is an abysmal mess. So
yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, finish on that.
But yeah, to me, if I'm the offensive coordinator, Patrick Bieniemy, Miami would probably be one of the best spots because again, you have a good core there. But anywhere else that's going to be, and maybe Chicago, but other than that, any other potential head coaching jobs, I would say no because I hate good coordinators going to these places, getting a head coaching job. They do terrible because the organization is terrible, or they literally don't have enough time to literally fix the team to where it needs to be, and then they have a terrible coaching resume because, well, you spent 3 years with the Detroit Lions and you won like 20 games, but you lost 48. Like, no.
I think there's two issues. Number one, I actually said that Eric Bieniemy should have left the Chiefs in the offseason and went and been the offensive coordinator in Miami to show that he could do it away from Andy Reid. And the problem that we're having, and this turns into like where some people use it as a racial thing, is Doug Peterson was in the same position as Eric Bieniemy. Doug Peterson got a head coaching job, and everybody just assumed, oh, Doug Peterson was calling the plays. Even though it was with Patrick Mahomes, he went and got a job, did all this, with Alex Smith even. And now Bieniemy's in the same position, and people are saying, well, no, that's actually Andy Reid calling the plays. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Wasn't Matt Nagy also in this position, and he got a head coaching job? So the question is the offensive coordinator in Kansas City calling the plays and designing the plays, or is he not? Because that's the question that needs to be asked. And it doesn't just need to be asked of Bieniemy. It needs to be asked of Doug Peterson. It needs to be asked of Matt Nagy. We saw the quarterbacks coach, Zach Taylor, go from the Rams to the Bengals and get a job. So how much influence are these guys really having? Again, the questions have been talked about, the Rooney Rule stuff with Bieniemy. Is he a bad interview? Are owners or GMs prejudicial? We don't know those answers. But to me, the smartest move for Bieniemy last year, after that hiring process, like you said, we knew the Jags job was going to get filled by Urban Meyer pretty quickly. The other ones we were a little bit more surprised on. Go be an offensive coordinator somewhere else. I actually came up with an idea on our pod, or my co-host and I did. We talked about, I would like to see teams trade for coordinators. If you're a team, because right now the league is rewarding if you hire minority candidates for your front office, scouting position, stuff like that, that you're getting rewarded with compensatory picks. Cool. Yeah. If I'm a bad team, or if I'm a team that's on the rise, why wouldn't I offer a 4th rounder to Kansas City for Eric Bieniemy?
Yeah.
I mean, why not? Like, what's stopping them? So, again, I think there needs to be some movement when it comes to that. I think coordinators get this tag of being stagnant or stuck in the same place, or, oh, they're just a product of the Reid system, or they're a product of the Belichick system, or of the Shanahan system, or whatever. Well, then they also need to take a look at themselves and say, okay, well, where can I go to improve my resume? Because if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, eventually people don't respect it as much.
Yeah, and I'd 100% agree. And to be honest with you, I think the last time we ever saw a coach traded in the NFL was John Gruden from the Raiders to the Bucks, if I remember right. And I think they did. I think they gave up like a 1st round pick or something like that for him.
The Patriots had to give the Jets a 1st round pick for Belichick.
Yeah, which I mean worked out for you guys, but
we're not complaining,
right? But that was crazy that Bill was like, even Bill said, not even a day after, was like, no.
He quit on a napkin.
Yeah, he's like, no. This was a mistake. But no, I'd agree because, kind of like I said, I think a lot of times players make coordinators, they can make coaches, because again, Matt LaFleur, he's kind of one of those guys you didn't hear a lot about. It's not like, he was doing crazy stuff with Tennessee while he was there. And then he's like, okay, head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Okay. You also have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. So what really do you got to do as coach at that point? Just build the team around Aaron. So yeah, I would definitely agree. I hope Eric Bieniemy gets a good job. Kind of like Anthony said, he would be good for the Giants. I honestly thought he was going to get that job before Joe Judge. I'm glad he didn't, because it kind of the same thing. He doesn't have a good supporting cast as far as the front office goes. Dave Gettleman has been garbage. Even Freddie has admitted that Dave Gettleman should have been fired years ago. Dave Gettleman destroyed a Super Bowl caliber Panthers team that had Cam Newton, that had all of this great defense, and Dave said, "You know what? Not doing it. Don't like it. Moving on." And he's kind of done the same thing with the Giants. He got rid of Odell Beckham Jr. after saying, "We will not trade Odell." What was it, like 2 days later he traded Odell? It's like, what are you doing, man? He hasn't fixed the offensive line at all. You overpaid for, don't take offense, you overpaid for a Patriot system player in Nate Solder, that literally Nate Solder was only good when he was with the Patriots, and he has been
That's fair. You're not offending my delicate sensibilities. I have none.
They say he has been overpaid garbage by the Giants. Like he was solid for New England. I remember watching him like, okay, I can see it. It was like, I don't know. There's sometimes I've seen offensive linemen for the Patriots. They go somewhere else and they are not. Look at Trent Brown. Trent Brown went to the Raiders, earned bank, and they're like, yeah, go back to New England. No, go back to New England. So you reach and draft a dude out of Duke, which nobody was really going to grab Daniel Jones out of Duke for the first round. That was why.
Not in the first half of the first round, mind you, either.
Right. You got a phenomenal running back in Saquon, but the dude can't stay healthy because, again, you don't have an offensive line to help him. And I honestly, I don't think they've even put pieces together to kind of help some of the talent they did draft. I think they scored on Evan Ingram. I just think Evan Ingram has never really been utilized in a way that works for him best, because I've seen the dude, being a Dallas fan, I have to see him twice a year. He has made some excellent plays. It's not like he's a bum by no stretch of the imagination. You have Darius Slayton, you have Sterling Shepard, you went out and you got Kenny Galladay.
Which is a bad signing.
Yes, because he was like that.
They paid number one money for a number two receiver who can't stay on the field.
Right. And to me, it always says something when you're with a team on your rookie contract, like the Lions drafted him, and he had a good year with Matt Stafford. But that says a lot from a team that says, you're good, you are our number one receiver. But we're not paying for you, and we're not going to be paying anything that you're going to ask for. Like, we're not even going to offer you.
Don't even bring an offer back to us, because we're not going to match it. And we're not going to go above it.
And that says a lot, because Detroit, who knew they weren't going to have Marvin Jones, they weren't going to have Kenny Galladay, they were losing all of their receivers, said, you know what? No, we're good without Kenny. We're good. Yeah. I'm like, that says a lot. And the Giants said, no, we'll take Kenny. Kenny was great last year.
It's a red flag.
Yeah, it is. It's 100% a red flag. Now, I get it, because they're like, now they have to use, well, we've given Daniel Jones everything. We've given him quality wide receivers. Is Danny the guy? No. You've seen Danny wasn't the guy. His rookie year, which, rookie year, everybody kind of discredits, like, okay, fine. Danny's not the guy. His rookie year, that's a scratch. Second year, Danny's still not really progressing. He's not really the guy. Oh, well, Danny doesn't have anybody to throw to. Okay, well, now Danny has people to throw to. Danny's still not the guy. But look at their coaching hires. Joe Judge, I don't think Joe Judge is good. I think coaches are, well, not coaches. I think teams are just as influenced by kind of some of the inflation that the media puts in as much as fans are. Because
yeah, of course.
Because as a Patriots fan, how many Patriot coaches that have been in that system have actually gone out and succeeded outside of being under Bill Belichick?
Long term, none. I think people discredit Romeo Crennel because his overall win-loss record is not great. But Romeo Crennel was actually a decent head coach a couple different places, and has been a very respected and good defensive coordinator well after he left New England. Kansas City, Cleveland, Houston. Yep. So I actually am a Romeo Crennel stan. Other than that, I mean, a small bit with Josh McDaniels the 1 year in Denver. When his first year, I think they won 10 games or something.
Yeah.
outside of that, Mangini had a little bit, a little bit with the Jets, a little bit with Cleveland, but again, nothing sustained. It never lasts more than 2 or 3 years. So not really. I think Joe Judge I don't think he's a bad coach. I think the way I think of Joe Judge is the way I think of a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. He's serviceable. He's a starter. Like, Joe Judge isn't a guy that should be fired after 2 years, but Joe Judge isn't a guy that I think of going to like an NFC Championship game. He's right in the middle. And some teams are okay with that. Maybe the Giants are okay with that. Maybe they're not. I don't know. The Mara family they're kind of a conundrum at times, the way that they run their team.
Well, and do you think that, because to me, Joe Judge, like kind of the big red flag, and maybe it was just purely coincidence for Joe Judge, but the fact that he had three players sign with him in free agency, all 3 of them retired in a week. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if maybe it is because he implements the Patriot way, which the Patriot way is hard. It's not, you're not going to come there to have fun.
You run laps, you run sprints, you do the stuff that you haven't done in probably 10 years. Exactly.
But it for Bill and the Patriots, because he implemented it, he had a quarterback that helped support it, as in Tom, and the results spoke for itself. Mm-hmm. It works. I don't think it worked everywhere else, because you have guys that I don't think know the balance. Like Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia did not have the balance with him. Matt Patricia is just stern fist, like, this is what we're doing. Yep. I don't care what you guys think. I got no respect for you. Do this and we will win. No.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is when you're around somebody all the time. Like, I don't know what shows you listen to, but if you listen to Colin Cowherd all the time, if you listen to Colin Cowherd, 2 hours a day, every day, 4 hours a day, every day, and you get on a radio, you get on a podcast, you get on a TV show like this, you're going to start to talk like him. Yep. Even if you do it subliminally, you do it. You're yourself. You're Tony. I'm Joe. We do it. Right. But we start to mimic those that we are around all the time, who we hear all the time, who we think of as influences all the time. And the problem, exactly like you said, is guys like Patricia, guys like McDaniels, guys like Mangini, they try and take it somewhere else, and they want to be like 60% Belichick and 40% themselves. But then it seems to shift into that mold of like 65-35, 70-30. Well, my way's not working, so I'm going to go a little bit more towards Bill because his way works. Like you said, I mean, that situation, I was a fan before the Super Bowls. Drew Bledsoe was my guy. Mm-hmm. I was upset when a Michigan quarterback took over, but I learned to deal with it over time.
So you got 6 Super Bowls out of it. I don't think you can really complain.
You sell yourself for for some titles. But again, you're right. Organizations are influenced. I don't want to blame it on social media because that's not fair, but they hear things, whether it's print in newspapers, if you're in cities like New York and Chicago and LA and things of that sort, podcasters, radio hosts, things of that sort. You are influenced. I think what needs to be respected is the organizations that aren't. Organizations like Pittsburgh, organizations like New England, where they really don't let the outside noise get to them. I mean, Pittsburgh has had 3 head coaches in 60 years. I mean, nobody can touch that. I don't care what, success, not success, whatever. Like, nobody touches that. So they don't let anything bother them when it comes to that. And I think that's a mentality. I would even say a little bit of like Arthur Blank in Atlanta. I think some of his coaches have actually stuck around a little bit longer than maybe they should have. But Arthur Blank, he doesn't like to fire people. It's a really hard decision. And he seems to run that organization in a way where it's like, okay, we're going to go through the troubles and we're going to go through the highs. And I'm just going to kind of block everything out until it just becomes too much.
Well, and to be honest with you, I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. I think it does come to a point where, like in Arthur Blank's situation, where you're giving guys chances, but they're not producing you results. Like he gave Dan Quinn 5 years. I don't think that's bad, because if you look at a place like Cleveland, a coaching carousel, it's like they have a new coach every year. This is the longest sustainment of like a coach and a quarterback that they've had in like 20 flipping years. Yeah. Like we and look at Jacksonville too. Jacksonville, rotating carousel of coaches. Detroit, rotating carousel of coaches. And we've seen those teams. Chicago, you've kind of seen those teams are typically more of kind of the bottom feeder teams that are struggling to succeed and struggling to go anywhere. And it's kind of ironic now that, because a lot of people have brought it up, the only person that has ever played in the Patriot way, keyword played, not coach, played in the Patriot way and has had any type of success is Mike Vrabel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how a lot of people try to say, "Oh, well, he's a Bill Belichick guy." No, he's not. He's not. He was a player. He. I think Mike has been able to work because he has been able to see it from a player standpoint and a coaching standpoint. I think he has just enough of a balance between, I know how to do the Patriot way. I know I have to be tough. I know I have to be firm. But as a player, as a man, as a person, I've been on that field being on the receiving end of the Patriot way. So this is how I have to do things in order because if I'm that guy, if I'm in their shoes, you are not going to treat me like the Patriot way and then expect me to be able to perform for you like the way that you want me to.
Yeah, he's not a direct Belichick guy, but he's like a kissing your third cousin Belichick guy because he did work under Crennel. So, like, it's one of those, like, you don't want anybody to see you, but you don't feel as guilty about it. It's like, okay, he doesn't really he's not a Belichick guy, but he comes from the tree.
Yeah.
So, in that terms, I get it because he actually coached under Urban Meyer at Ohio State. He went back there and helped out.
Yes,
and then again with Romeo Crennel and stuff. So I think Vrabel has the benefit of like the modern NFL coach of where he played in the offenses and the defenses that we see now. He played under a lot of these rules. He could see them coming down the pipe. He's young enough that he got to do that, but he's also old enough that he's experienced in the college game, in the pro game. He didn't just go to being a defensive coordinator. He was actually, a position coach. I think he was a linebackers coach in Houston. You know, and stuff like that before becoming a defensive coordinator. So like you said, he doesn't come directly from the tree, but he does take a little bit of everything. Vrabel's his own man, but you can definitely see where he got that from Crennel, from that kind of thought process of like the analytical and not analytical stats, but like the mind game way of coaching defense and even the way offense is, because defensive coordinators, the thing that they have to do to be successful, and this goes for offensive coordinators too, is they have to understand the other side of the ball. Bill Belichick is maybe the greatest defensive mind in NFL history because he understands offenses so well. Because you have to know how to defend. You have to know what they're going to do to defend it.
Yeah, and I think kind of the other thing too that to me, if I was a head coach like in Bill's position, I like what Bill did as far as he went out and he got an offensive coordinator that he trusted, that he works well with his quarterback, and he's basically the head coach, but Josh McDaniels runs everything on the offense. Bill and his again, no offense, his son is weird and makes some weird.
He's weird. He's weird. Don't apologize.
So weird.
Don't apologize.
But Josh basically runs the offense, and Bill is like, "Hey, son, focus, coach the defense." But I do agree. I think that's kind of where Vrabel has worked because, think about it. You got coached by Bill Belichick, considered one of the greatest coaches in the league. You then, coached with and learned from one of the greatest college coaches considerably in the game ever to have coached the game in Urban Meyer, managing to help, Utah, Florida, Ohio State all win national championships. And then you learned under, like you said, Romeo Crennel, who was solid with Kansas City, solid with the Houston, solid with Cleveland. So yeah, I think Vrabel is probably one of the greatest successes from the Belichick tree. I
would say I would probably say the greatest. I mean, Saban because he went to college and things of that sort. But I think when you look at the pros, I think it's easily Vrabel.
Yeah, easily for sure. And it's funny because if you look at Urban right now, and maybe it's just because he's with the Jags, he's got a rookie quarterback, he's struggling. He's struggling in the NFL. But I'll say at the same time, I haven't liked Urban's coaching staff hires. I think they're garbage. Hot garbage. Yeah. And I think if he doesn't really take a good look at his coaching staff at the end of this year, like, to me, if I'm Patrick Bieniemy, go develop Trevor Lawrence. Like, you took a dude in Patrick Mahomes who, think about it. I don't know how much college you watch, but did anybody ever mention Patrick Mahomes before he got drafted in the NFL?
I mean, as one of those, like, boy, if this guy puts it together, but not as like when Kansas City drafted up and took him, it was like, whoa, like Andy Reid must really think that they can do something with this kid, because he was not somebody who was considered, at least that I remember, as a top 10 pick.
Right.
He was not somebody that was going to be like, oh, just you wait. Somebody's going to trade up for this kid. And it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, if he falls to somebody great, I put him in the same class a little bit as like the Aaron Rodgers in that draft.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy had all the physical tools.
Mm-hmm.
And if he went to the right situation and learned under the right system, he could be successful. The difference is Patrick Mahomes waited 1 year, whereas Aaron Rodgers waited 3 years.
Right. So, yeah, to me, if I'm Eric Bieniemy and if I'm Urban Meyer, I am begging him to come down and help with Trevor Lawrence because I think wide receiver-wise, I think Jacksonville is actually pretty solid. You have DJ Chark from LSU, who's not terrible. He's your speedster. I thought Marvin Jones Jr. I thought initially was going to be a solid pickup for them. I remember watching him in Cincy last year in Detroit. The dude was fantastic for both teams consistently.
I like that signing, yeah.
The tight end, there's a lot of questions. Running back, I don't know if James Robinson is the guy. I think he just happened to get lucky he was a rookie running back. Nobody really knows how to stop him. It's not one of those, he was a big name coming out of college, so it's not like there's going to be a ton of film on him as far as stopping him. Now there is. Now we've kind of seen James Robinson he's not bad, but he's not, not a top 5 back, by no means. So if I'm Eric Bieniemy, that's your real test. Go to Jacksonville. Help Jacksonville be help Jacksonville be like 8-9. Help Jacksonville be like second in the AFC South.
You know what he needs to help Jacksonville be? 2% milk. It's not the healthiest thing for you, but you know what? It's going to sustain you. It's going to get you through the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not whole milk, and you're right above skim milk. You're like right.
That's
right.
right.
You're right in the middle.
It's going to make you throw up, but it's not going to. You're going to want to wash it down with something.
Right. All right. So talked a lot about the NFL. So let's move real quick as far as the college. So I'm actually going to give you the pick. We got three games to me that I think is going to be big determining factors for a lot of the college football playoff implications, a lot of the standings. We've got Michigan State versus Ohio State. We've got Oklahoma versus Iowa State. We've got Arkansas versus Alabama. Now, 2 of those games feature both teams being ranked, with Michigan State being ranked 7, Ohio State being ranked 4. Arkansas, I think, is ranked 21st, and Alabama is ranked number 2. And in the Oklahoma versus Iowa State, Oklahoma is ranked 13th. Iowa State is unranked. To you, out of any of these games, do you think that there's any team that should be kind of worried about being on upset? And kind of real quick, who do you think takes home the win in these 3 games?
I think Oklahoma has to be worried about the upset. Iowa State was a team they played last year in the Big 12 championship. I think it's a team that can give them issues. Me personally, I've never been a Lincoln Riley person. I don't think he runs an offense. I think he runs a gadget offense. There's rumors about him being linked to LSU. Again, I said it earlier. What does he do well? Okay, he gets Heisman winning quarterbacks. All right, do they win national titles with them? No. Do they sustain more than 1 year? No, because they're usually gone. I mean, right now we see an issue where, like, you had a Heisman Trophy candidate at the beginning, and now you go, was it Caleb Williams, I believe is his name?
Yep.
And now they're not even sure if he's going to start, so they might go back to Spencer Rattler. So, again, like, to me, I think Iowa State has a decent chance against Oklahoma, so that's on upset alert. Alabama, I mean, yeah, I get it. Arkansas's ranked, but, I mean, is Alabama scared of Arkansas? No. I don't think so. So I don't really see that being – I think they're like 20.5-point favorites. I'm not a betting man myself for the most part, but yeah, I don't think that they're going to get within 2 touchdowns. I think that's a pretty safe bet. I mean, Bryce Young has looked really good on offense. Again, their defense isn't what it's been in previous years. Also, their offense isn't what it was last year, but they're still the number 2 team in the country. So do I see them getting upset before? I mean, with a win, they go up against Georgia in the SEC championship. They know that's their first stepping stone. They are a stepping stone team. Okay, we got to win our conference, and then we go to, or we got to win, the division, the East-West. We have to win that, and then go to the conference, and then beat them and do all that stuff. So to them, Saban's got them focused. I don't see them getting tripped up by Arkansas. Yeah. Anthony commented below, Michigan State, Ohio State. Now, last year, this was a game a lot of people thought Michigan State would be competitive in. They weren't. Nope. I think right now they're like 3 touchdown favorites, like 20-point favorites.
Yeah.
The thing that scares, I'm an Ohio State fan, in case I didn't say that. the thing that scares me is the last couple of years, Michigan State has really tried to establish the running game, especially this year. Excuse me. They have, I'm trying to think of his name.
Kenneth Walker.
Yes. I think it's 7 straight 100-yard games.
Yep.
Ohio State's run defense has not been what it used to be. They are very susceptible to the run. Teams that have beat them the last couple of years have run the ball really well on them. Penn State earlier in the year, they didn't beat them, but they stayed competitive because they were able to run the ball a little bit more. I do like the Ohio State offense. CJ Stroud was somebody that I'm not going to lie. I did not think that he was going to have this type of season. He struggled early. The Oregon game was bad. But again, he was replacing Justin Fields, who was number 1 high school prospect, transfer from Georgia, all this other stuff. Yeah. So I kind of expected Ohio State to be good, maybe in the Big Ten championship, but not necessarily. I love Olave as a receiver. The running game's a little bit better than I thought it would be. Yeah. But if you tell me that Michigan State, who again beat Michigan, gave them their only loss of the year, if you tell me that Mel Tucker and the Spartans beat Ohio State, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I'd be surprised because I do think the offense of Ohio State is that good. Yeah. But I wouldn't be. I mean, again, if Walker goes for 198 yards, am I going to be stunned? No, not really. Yeah.
And I'd agree because I'll be honest with you, because I watched a lot of Ohio State games because even when I was stationed in DC, that's one of always the Big Ten team to carry has been Ohio State. Yep. I like you said, I noticed early with the Minnesota game, CJ Stroud's first game, he didn't do bad, but he struggled. He struggled in the Oregon game and kind of so on and so forth. To me, the big thing that kind of surprises me with this Ohio State team is statistically, they're putting up the yards, but it's like they don't have those big playmakers like they've almost always had. They don't have the Terry McLaurins. They don't have the
I do think Olave is that guy, but he's getting double covered. Like they're trying to do everything, which is why Wilson has eaten this year and gotten so many touchdowns because they're paying so much attention to Olave.
Yeah, and I agree because last year Olave was just burning people left and right, and kind of the same with the Ohio State defense. You don't have one of those premier edge rushers like you've had. You had both the Bosa brothers, back to back, and you had Chase Young. So it's like now, especially kind of last year, you saw it. They don't really have that one guy that has made that significant, impact defensively. But I do kind of agree. I think, honestly, the biggest thing that's going to hurt Michigan more than anything is going to be their defense because their defense has been a weak point for them the entire time. If you look at a team like Purdue, Purdue put it up against, Iowa when they were ranked number 2. They put it up against, Michigan State now. Ohio State at one point was even on upset by, supposed to be on upset by them, and Ohio State took care of business. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely see it, I think, being more competitive than what we'd probably expect, but I would still say Ohio State's probably going to be a 2-touchdown favorite at least.
The Oregon loss was the best thing that could happen to Ohio State. They had a team coming in that was, ranked behind them. They were high up in the standings. They were missing a few players. Oregon comes in and gets the win. They get that loss out of the way early where they look and say, hey, listen, we have no room for error now. We have no margin for error. We can't be piddling around. Like, you guys need to focus and do this. And after that game, they seem to really change on offense. Again, running the ball a little bit more. The passing game is kind of changed with the tight ends a little bit more and things of that sort. Like you said, there's no I love Olave. Defensively, there's no defensive, shutdown corner like they've had the last few years. Again, the edge rushers are a little bit different. So I am concerned, like you said, about the Michigan State offense. The Michigan State defense is my hope in the game that Ohio State can spread them out, run the ball effectively, get some open lanes, and just put up a lot of points and just kind of run the game out in the second half will be my hope.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, if you look at least the top 10 teams, the only 2 teams that have – a loss is a loss, but they have better losses is Michigan and Ohio State because Michigan lost to Michigan State, who's ranked in the top 10. Ohio State lost to Oregon, who's also in the top 10. Everybody else has pretty much lost to an unranked team. So I do agree, though. I called the other night on one of the other shows I do here. We do a lot of the college predictions. I think Iowa State upsets Oklahoma. I say that because really, if you look at both Iowa teams in Iowa and Iowa State, both, they're the teams that Are they ever in the Big Ten championships? No, but are they normally ranked, top? Well, not top, but like bottom 15 to 25. Yes. Can they always give some of these teams more of a run for their money? Yes. So I think, like you said, with Williams coming in, his confidence is going to be shaken. If I'm Lincoln Riley, I don't go back to Spencer Rattler. And I say that because you look at any quarterback, professional or college, either one, when you say you're done, go to the bench, this guy's starting, your confidence, how you play the game, you're going to try to make more plays like, hey, I'm still the guy. What does it almost always end up leading up to? Ends up leading up to more mistakes. And I think if he does that, Spencer Rattler is either going to come in and he's going to drop the ball literally, or Garrett Williams, you just need to roll with him, roll with the rest of it. Because, I mean, think about it. That's what they did with Spencer Rattler last year. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. And they're like, okay, we're going to roll with you into the next year. I think they knew to do the exact same thing with Williams.
Unless Williams gets hurt, I don't see Rattler seeing the field. That's the only way you can come in, is where Spencer Rattler leads. He needs to be the conquering hero coming back in, like, okay, I could do this and stuff like that. And it can't be like, okay, we're tired of him now, we're going to pull him, you need to go back in. I just think that's a recipe for disaster. And I just don't think Oklahoma's very good.
No.
I just don't.
Because kind of the same. They don't have the offense like they used to. They've never really had a defense, but most of the Big 12 typically doesn't. And then real quick, because we're about to wrap it up, I do think Alabama gets the win. If it was in Arkansas, I would maybe see Alabama being a little bit more on the upset. But I think because it's in Tuscaloosa, I think Bama goes ahead and gets the win. But that is all we got, Joe. Thank you for being on. Thanks for being on the show. Greatly appreciated, especially in the return episode after being off for like 8 weeks. So
my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I was super excited and super nervous for this, and I've been watching you guys' shows more often, and I'm so thankful that you invited me on and had me on, and I'm glad we got to talk.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate it. And y'all can actually catch, I think Joe's also going to come on Just Say the Truth, which is actually getting ready to come on right after this. I'm also going to be the moderator for that. But again, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Hoosier Huddle. And we will be back. I don't think we'll be back this upcoming week because it's Thanksgiving, but we'll see.
Well, I'll leave that up to you, sir. I'm always available. So you shoot me a link and I'm here.
Okay. Well, it's Thanksgiving, so we might have to play that one by ear because I'll probably be back at home for that one. So we'll see. All righty. But y'all take care and y'all have a good night.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.